We now know which two teams will be competing in this year's UEFA Women's Champions League final as Arsenal play a Barcelona side in the hunt for their third consecutive European title. After that, we've got the Euros in Switzerland in July. So it's really shaping up to be a huge couple of months in Europe for women's football. Someone who won the European club football's biggest trophy with Arsenal back in 2007 and was a runner-up with England in the 2009 Euros joins us now. And it is Lianne Sanderson. How are you, Lianne?
Hi, Natalie. Lovely to see you as always.
Oh, lovely to see you. Are you keeping well?
Yeah, all good. Thank you. All busy. It's a really busy time, obviously, in men's football, women's football right now with so many different games, cup finals, semi-finals. So it's a really exciting time.
It is a really exciting time and an exciting time for Arsenal as well, reaching that Women's Champions League final that I've mentioned with a remarkable turnaround in the second leg, Lianne, which they won 4-1 to win 5-3 on aggregate against Lyon, who are, of course, the record holders with 8 European titles. What did you make of that semi-final, first of all?
I mean, I was completely blown away because I covered the game and I was like, my head and my heart was telling me two different things. Lyon hadn't lost the game since last year's final. And that includes Champions League, that includes their leagues. I think sometimes people discredit Lyon and clubs like PSG because their league is not competitive. But I think it's quite admirable that every single season, they're always, not so much PSG this year, but Lyon are always up there in and around the final. The first leg, I thought Lyon were far superior at the Emirates. I think the scoreline flattered Arsenal quite a bit. First 20 minutes, I thought Lyon could have been 3-0 up. So, but I think going into the second leg, they beat Lyon in 2022, 5-1. So everyone kept talking about this. And I'm like, I just couldn't see it. I wanted to see it. But Arsenal, I think in these types of games, I'm not taking anything away from what the players did because I'm so proud of them and I'm so happy for the club. But I think you have to rely on them having an off day and you having maximising your day. Because 3 days later, Arsenal go and play Villa and get beat 5-2, which was the biggest shock ever. Villa in ninth in the WSL and they beat Arsenal. So there is an element of Arsenal got back on like Monday. I'm not making excuses, from Lyon. And there's a lot of fixtures coming, thick and fast. But I just was so delighted, honestly, Natalie. Like Caitlin Ford, I thought was exceptional. Katie McCabe, Kim Little. And in the first leg, those players were kind of non-existent. I've been saying it for a little while now that I feel like Arsenal, if they hadn't have made this final, like there's still a lot of positions I think they need to strengthen in because I think in order to compete with Chelsea in a WSL and I think in those types of competitions you need more strength in depth. But I've always questioned Arsenal's world-class players and they brought in Mariana Caldente this year, but Barcelona final last year, serial winner, scores a banger and then the rest is history. So I can't speak highly of the club enough. I think in women's football we often talk about all the not so great stories and I think Arsenal have always backed us from minute one when I was at the club. David Dean, Nick Akers, Arsene Wenger. So, it's just the club is not in this place based upon luck. It's because they are a very unified club. I just interviewed Alexia Russo last night and the players are very respectful of the former generation as well. That I'd love to talk about winning the Champions League, as you know, but I love the fact that the players, they don't say we want to be the first team to do it, and discredit what we did. They're like, we want to do what you guys did because we were 10 years old. Leslie Russo told me last night she was 10.
No one needs to be told that, really. Come on.
I know.
Makes us all feel old, doesn't it? But
I know.
it's interesting, this whole European campaign for Arsenal, because it feels as though it's been one of comebacks for them. They had to come from behind in their qualifier just to get into the group stage. They lost their first group game. Then in all of the knockout stages, in the first legs, they lost their first legs as well and had to come back and win the second legs to now get to this European final. Do you think there's a character to this team that actually could take them all the way to winning it?
Yeah, I think, when we won it in 2007, we were the underdogs against Umeå. It was Marta's team. Ramona Bachmann was 16 years old. She was incredible. And when you're the underdog, sometimes the pressure is on the other team. But I think the only thing that matters is getting there. Getting there, anything can happen. But I do think Barcelona are on a completely different level. And every single time Chelsea played them in the semi-final or when they played them in the final, there's this I don't think people are educated enough as to know how good Barcelona are. And I'm not quite sure. I heard a lot of different pundits before the game against Chelsea saying Chelsea were going to win. And I'm like, have they seen this Barcelona team? They've got Alexia Putellas, Bonmatí, Paraluela. The list could go on. And these are players. Last 4 Ballon d'Ors have been won by those 2 players. They're a top team. So I think sometimes there's a little bit of ignorance when it comes to women's football, England teams. They're I want them to go all the way, but you have to not discredit these teams like Barcelona. So I hope Arsenal can do it. I believe they can do it. They're going to have strong fan base going out there to Lisbon. I'll be there and like, I'll be so like emotional. If Arsenal were to win it and I was to be there, Natalie, like on the sideline doing it like the game, I'd be just so thrilled.
Oh, well, I can well imagine. And we'll come to Barcelona and talk about them in more detail in just a moment. But obviously, as we've mentioned, this is their first European final since when you were in the team and you won it in 2007. How much of this sort of season can be attributed to Rene Slegers, who took over as manager as interim in October, then permanently in January?
Yeah, I think it has to be. I mean, I know she originally didn't want the job, like, not because she didn't want it. It was like, it's a massive job. So that was your first head coach job. And I think, everybody wanted her to get the job. And from what I've heard from the players, and Kim Little after the game was saying, what Rene Segers has done is that composure, that calmness that kind of filters throughout the team. I like Jonas Eideveld. He's over in America now, and I speak to him quite often when I do his games, and he's doing fantastically over there. I think everything runs its course at times. And I think that was the reality there. I think at times Jonas didn't know his best team, and he tinkered with the team a lot. They brought in Alexia Russo, and she was on the bench. Stina Blackstenius was starting when, for me, Alessia Russo is on a completely different level. And as a player, if you've been brought in and you're already on the bench, the manager's not having you. Let's be honest. And the confidence wasn't there last year from Alessia Russo. Now look, Rene Slegers, Kelly Smith has been working with Alessia at the club as well. And you can see a difference in Alessia's confidence. And I think that's the difference. Rene Slegers is very calm. And also, to make me feel really old again, and I always feel like Peter Pan, when I met her at the Bayern Munich game, when I interviewed her after the game, I said, "Nice to meet you, Rene." She said, "I was actually at the Arsenal Academy when you were in the first team, but we're only a few years different because I was young in the first team. Like, I was
Sure.
only 14, but like, I said, oh, and she just so nice, like really kind, really nice to talk to. And I think like, it always seems she's very composed. And I think that the players, depending on what players and squads you have, that works with this squad. I'm not sure if calm and composed would have worked with my 2007 squad because we were like, rah. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
needed that kind of like, some people needed that, like, that kind of right. And some people needed that calmness, but we were just on 150 miles per hour all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned there Alessia Russo because I think at the start of the season she scored one in nine, something like that. Now she's Arsenal's top scorer, 20 goals in all competitions. She looks reinvigorated. So does Chloe Kelly, who joined in January. Let's not forget. They're just a couple of players I'm picking out. And then when you look at the season as a whole, the club was sixth in the WSL. They'd lost their first Champions League game as well when they decided to bring in Rene Slegers after Jonas Eideveld resigned. At the time of this recording, they're second in the league now in a European final as well. Have you ever seen a manager make such an impact in such a short space of time?
I don't think so, to be honest. I'm trying to think, like, in my time of being as a player, I don't think so. I mean, it's not even just the new manager bounce that every club has in the men's game and the women's game. Matt Beard got let go by Liverpool and Amanda Whiteley went in there earlier in the season. And there was that kind of new coach. She was the assistant, but like they had a few games where they won. And then eventually it resorts back to, the standard of what they're at. But no, I don't think I have, and I think it's been amazing. And I think it would have been really, really like anticlimactic and sad if she hadn't have taken the job. I'm sure they were offering it to her around, in October, November because of the way the players felt. But I understood why she needed to take more time. But this is incredible. I mean, the fact that everybody's expecting Chelsea to get to the final,
Mm.
and the fact that Arsenal are in it, like Chelsea have just won, another championship, and they've been incredible. But like, it's just amazing, really.
Oh, absolutely. And as you say, Chelsea, many expected them to get to this final once more, but it was Barcelona that knocked them out, having beaten them 8-2 on aggregate over the two legs. Now, you've already sort of hinted to us how incredible this Barcelona side are. Are they the best side in Europe right now
Yeah,
for
I'd
you?
say so. I mean, without a doubt, I think every single year consistently, it's always usually a Lyon versus Barcelona final 9 times out of 10. If it wasn't Lyon, there was one year there was Chelsea, Wolfsburg previously as well, were pushing like not too long ago. So I don't know. I just love this Barcelona team. And I think, thing is, Natalie, when you watch them live, right? Similar to men's football, women's football, whatever, like you have a true understanding for these players individually when you watch them live. You can watch them on TV and they still look amazing. But every single time I see like Chelsea play against Barcelona seem to just always take it to another level, and Chelsea can't seem to live up to the expectation in that game. The pressure, for some reason, against Barcelona seems to get to them. I think there's a psychological edge. They've only just scored their first goal against Barcelona at Stamford Bridge in however many games. So psychologically, they need to overcome that hurdle every time they play Barcelona, they lose. In the final a few years ago, they were 3-0 down after 20 minutes. But honestly, like, this Barcelona team is just so good. And, you know, Jonathan Raldes was there last year. He's now in America. You know, their coach has come in. Like, he was recruited from within. Then before that, Luis Cortez was recruited from within. So they don't have these like glitz and glamour coaches. They just do what the men's team do, at La Messiah, where they just kind of bring everybody in that knows the club.
Yeah, which goes to show that sort of the sort of ethos of the club. You know, you're learning it from behind the scenes, and then eventually you get that role, as we've seen with the Barcelona women's team and the men's team as well previously. Who should Arsenal be wary of then in this Barcelona team? I'm assuming most of them, but is there any particular player that you'd pick out?
Yeah, I mean, Alexia Putellas, she's been like incredible. She had her ACL injury a couple of years ago and it took her a little while to kind of back, and it does happen, but she's one of the best in the world. Bonmatí is the best in the world. Caroline Graham Hansen as well. She's a fantastic player. It's almost like similar to Merida Caldente when she was at Barcelona. Goes under the radar because there's Bonmatí and Putellas. So therefore everyone focuses on those players. But I think Caroline Graham Hansen, I mean, just to summarize, like, their centre back takes corners, Mappy Leon. So like, they are just so good. Like, technically is the point I'm making. I've never known a centre back to be the corner taker because they are the best technically at that action. And I just feel like the thing that separates Barcelona from everybody else, they're so comfortable on the ball. Like, the way they ping the ball into each other, they move around the pitch in triangles, and they never, like, they play out from the back, which I'm not a big fan of always, right? But they never panic, and they never turn over the ball in those areas. So I don't know, they are the best, and they're the best for a reason, and I love watching them. And hopefully they have a similar performance like Lyon did against Arsenal in the final, and, you know, Arsenal can get the job done, but it's going to be difficult.
Well, these things can happen. You never know. Get an early goal for Arsenal and
Yeah.
rock Barcelona, certainly. But someone I wanted to pick up on is someone you've mentioned a couple of times now, Mariona Caldente, who, of course, as you said, used to play for Barcelona, won it the European Cup last season with them, now playing for Arsenal. Do you think Slegers and her team can tap into any knowledge, or because Barcelona have changed their manager, that it might not be as useful information?
Do you know what? Like, Barcelona don't really recruit a lot of players. They kind of keep the same players over and over again. And that's something to be said. I think, you know, ultimately, Marina Caldente will have a little bit of information, but I think that it doesn't really make a difference in these types of moments. I think when Caldente's come over initially, people were thinking, where was she going to play? You know, is she going to play in the 10? Is she going to play out wide? Because she's that type of player that kind of likes a free roll. And also, like, I've said it before, the first semi-final, like, she never like crumbles under pressure. And having someone that could take penalties like she can, I know it sounds like really trivial because people think penalties are luck. I don't think they're luck. But at the same time, Carol Dente has scored so many penalties this year, which I think has been in key moments for Arsenal that can be a major factor as well, because you need players that can step up in big moments. And I think, saw the goal she scored at the weekend. I mean, it was a goal of the weekend for sure. It was an absolute banger, no backlift. And I said to girls on co-coms with that he reminded me of Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, you know, the way he used to like have no backlift and just kind of ping the ball. And she had like such an acute angle. It was such a great goal. And like, she's been a fantastic signing. And the fact that she's I mean, it's incredible. Like, it's not a coincidence she's come from Barcelona. And I'm not saying it's all down to her, because there's Kim Little, there's other players that had great games, but it's amazing, like, that she's in another final.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's dreamland, really, just to get to one. But yeah, a second successive final for her. Likewise for Barcelona, too. As we've mentioned, they're on a roll when it comes to European finals. But if you were to give this Arsenal team then some advice, knowing what you've achieved with this Arsenal team before and having been the last side to have won a European Cup as well, what advice would you give them?
I mean, I think football has changed, you know, since we won it. That's not discrediting anything we did, because no one's ever done it again. But I think you have to believe, you know, you have to believe. And I think one thing that we really loved is the fact when we won it, Umeya had a party booked. We heard about that. They had limousines waiting outside Boreham Wood. We had a choice of playing at the Emirates or playing at Boreham Wood, and we actually chose to play at Boreham Wood. And people were thinking, why was that? Because it felt like Emirates was an away game. All those Arsenal's home games now are at the Emirates, which feels like home. Whereas for us, like, it was an away game. It was too big of a, like, the stadium wasn't filling out. It just felt like too big of a jump. And I felt like it would have actually helped them if we would have played there. So we had to believe. And I think hearing all these things, like, everybody's going to be talking about Barcelona winning, right? So Arsenal can use that in their favour. And I think if they have that performance they had against Real Madrid and a performance they had against Lyon, they can definitely do it. but they cannot give them too much respect. And, I was playing against Marta. I was 18 years old. Marta's the greatest ever player still playing now. But like, you cannot give them too much respect. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to get in their faces, dictate the tempo, play your game. But equally, you don't want to leave yourself wide open because they always seem to have an answer. So all I would say is believe they can do it. They've still got games to prepare for that. And I think Barcelona, we know, are far superior, but it's getting there that all that matters, Natalie. Like, Arsenal don't play Barcelona. It's not like Chelsea where they play Barcelona every single season. So Barcelona would have been hoping it was Chelsea that would have got to the final. Do you know what I mean? Like, against them, if that was a situation, they did play them in the semi, like, because they kind of have their number. Whereas I think for Barcelona, they'll be thinking, oh, this is an interesting one. Because they haven't played each other for a few years.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Absolutely. It's the unknown beast that they might be facing that they're not quite aware of. And we're going to come on to the Euros in just a moment. But I wanted to sort of talk about Barcelona and the Spanish national team, and if there's any correlation in the fact that they're dominating so much domestically, Barcelona, but also on the European stage. And then what Spain have achieved recently, winning the World Cup, for example. Has the strength of the domestic league helped the national team?
I think, it has to have, but I don't even think it's the strength of the league. I think it's the fact that it's everyone's full-time pro, mostly. I think that makes a difference. I played for Espanyol, like, when the league folded in America, and we came second behind Barcelona. We missed the league by 1 point. Not that I remember that or anything. But, like, it was, I think, ultimately, the more competition you have at club level, it will help going into these major tournaments. I think for Lyon, they're like an anomaly where they seem to be able to consistently perform in Europe, in and out of Europe. But I think Spain, the fact that England beat them, a few months ago, I don't get wrapped up in that. I love the fact they won, and I think we needed it at that moment in time because we wasn't on a great run. And we'd just drawn with Portugal, had some indifferent results, but I do think this Spain team, it'd be interesting to see which players are going to allow themselves to be up for selection as well, because obviously every single tournament, the last couple of tournaments, there was 10 at the last World Cup that refused to go. And obviously they've had all that. And I felt for the players, that won because of the Luis Rubiales stuff. It was like they weren't really ever able to celebrate that incredible, you've won a World Cup, and it was like they were never allowed to really celebrate because it was just all that negativity after. So I'm sure that the players are looking forward to this tournament, with that being put to bed now. But they are a top side.
They are a top side. Lots of top sides, obviously, that we can discuss going into this summer's Euros. Then England, though, of course, defending champions. So, as you mentioned, results sort of late have been indifferent. Let's say up and down with some of the tournaments that they've been playing in qualifiers and Nations League, for example. How do you rate their chances coming into this summer?
It's funny because I asked Alexia Russo that last night. Did she feel more pressure going into this one? Because the last one, they weren't the favourites. People kept thinking, because it was in England, they kept saying, oh, the girls doing so good. I'm like, they wasn't the favourites. They're just doing so good. And it's amazing. I think, the Lionesses are in an interesting place because there's not a lot of individual players that are in their best run of form apart from Alexia Russo. Leah Williamson hasn't had her best year really individually, but she's a fantastic player. Millie Bright, when her and Millie seem to play, Millie and Leah in the back line, we saw against Germany when they were going up against pace. Be interesting to see. Alex Greenwood came on last weekend and Lauren Hemp did. So if everybody's fit, Lauren James is now injured, again. So it's like, if everybody's fit and healthy, I picked my 11 the other day with Adrian Durham on air. And if everyone's fit and healthy, I know what I'd go with. But then there's a lot of question marks because then do you start Chloe Kelly, that's used as that super sub coming in for the Lionesses. So there's a lot of players. Georgia Stanway's still out injured. So there's a lot of question marks for Serena Wiegman to have to answer. So I think it's going to be, if you're asking me now, will England win the Euros? I think I would say no. As much as I'd love them to, I just have a feeling. And their group, France, Netherlands, oh my God.
I was going to come to that. Are you even concerned they might not get out the group?
I mean, potentially, because they are a top up. I mean, France, but France, every time they get to, I think under Diancro, it was different because there was a lot of noise off the pitch. I think this French team, if they are on their day, they can win the tournament, right? But they always seem to get to tournament. They're like Brazil men, when everybody thinks they're going to be good and you want them to be good and they never seem to kind of get to where you want them to get to. This French side are incredible, but I think the Netherlands will be pushing as well. Wales are in our group, and we can't discredit them because Brian Wilkinson's done an incredible job since she came in. They've never qualified for a major tournament, and they don't like playing against. You know what it's like, Annie. They don't like playing against England. We never had a problem playing against them, but we always knew that when we played against Wales, Ireland, or Scotland, they would always step their game up. So that won't be an easy game either. So I think England will get out the group, but it's not a given. And I think they know that as well.
Yeah, it's a really, really tricky group when you consider France, I think, were Nations League runners up, weren't they? And you've got previous European champions there with the Netherlands. And as you say, the debutants, Wales, they're going to want to go there and make some sort of statement in their first ever sort of major tournament as well. It's not going to be easy. So if it's not going to be England, then, Lianne, that's going to win the Euros, who should we be looking out for?
Well, I was obviously going to say Spain.
Yeah.
For me, like, I love watching them play. But I think France, I don't want to say France because I want England to win it and they're in their group. So it's difficult. Like I said, I have a lot of this battle head and heart with me because I want the Lionesses. I'd love it. Because we saw what happened in England. You know, when the Lionesses won the Euros, like, and I hope that the nation still gets behind the team. I think they will, with the fact that it's in Switzerland. Because I felt like the fact that it was in England, the last tournament, like, people were getting on board slowly as they were kind of getting towards the latter stages. So for me, I'm going to say Spain, but I think France will push it.
Yeah, I mean that Euros that summer when it was hosted here in England was just incredible, and being able to go to one of the local stadiums, Brentford here, which were hosting some of the group games, it was just the best atmosphere you can enjoy at football. So I hope, like you say, that everyone continues to be swept up by it. Lianne, you've played obviously in a number of leagues across the world: England, the US, Spain, Cyprus, Italy. How do you assess the strength of women's football around the world right now?
Yeah, I definitely think I really hate saying it's growing because I think that's such a cliche thing to say, because at what point do we say we've actually made it and can celebrate, where we're at? And I often have that conversation internally as well. I'm like, at what point are we just going to be like, this is amazing, like, all these different events that are on for the women's game? But the one thing I think I will judge the success on globally is the amount of young girls that are getting into playing. I think it's incredible. And the fact that men and boys now have like Beth Mead shirts. Do you know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
Alex Morgan on the back of their shirt. Like that never used to happen back in the day. I was the only girl playing like in an all boys team. So I love the fact that there's more girls, boys, men, demographic of the fans have changed, which I love. But I think globally, there's still a long way to go, Natalie. Like
Mhm.
I've started off on a positive, but there is still so much to do with regards to even the attendances in the WSL, in the NWSL, and globally. Like Lyon, like don't get a high attendance, and they're like second best team in the world. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like they carried, I
Mm.
think, to the Emirates, which is an away game. They had about maybe 50 fans, 100 fans that are in the away end, and then Arsenal had the rest of it. So, and if you look at any of the WSL games, apart from Arsenal,
Mm.
the tendencies are not great. So I just worry that, like, where is everybody going? And that's a whole nother story, because I think our bread and butter was like signing autographs after games, giving away everything. And we only got one shirt a season when I played, and that wasn't even dinosaur times. It was like literally 5, 6 years ago. And I'd be giving everything away. Do you know what I mean? To the kids. And I think there's an element where the women's game has progressed, but I think sometimes the players need to be more aware. They can't sign 60,000 autographs. That's not what I'm
Mhm.
saying,
Mhm.
because there's also fans that expect a lot from the women players, which I don't understand, because you don't go to a City game expecting to meet Jack Grealish or Erling Haaland. You go to watch the game. But I do think that's because where we've come from is that our fans, like, going and signing autographs, taking selfies was what made them come back. And the young
Mhm.
girls would be so excited. Whereas sometimes they just kill me a little bit when I go to these games and I just see the fans can't get anywhere near the players anymore. And
Mm.
then,
Mm.
and I think, I don't know all the answers, but I do think that there's an element towards that why fans are not coming back, because the girls want to meet the players. So
Yeah.
it's a balance, really. I mean, you can't sign every autograph. I'm not saying that, but I do think there's an element where the game is going down a route that I'm not particularly fond of with regards to fans, players, interactions, and those types of things. Because myself and all my former teammates, we literally, like, we know how important the fans are.
Mm. But it's a very good point. I mean, in some ways, it feels it's accelerated the WSL maybe too much because they're forgetting the fan base and how important they are in this the sustainability of these football clubs, really. And you mentioned Arsenal; they play at the Emirates, and that's now their home, which is fabulous to see. But is that something you are in favour of? That more teams get to play at the bigger stadiums that are with the men's to where the men's team tend to play too?
If they can sell out, Arsenal, we
Yes.
can sell out. And it's because since 1987, they've been building that club. I was doing photo shoots with Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, and we were in the club shop. So people knew us because we were winning. and we've always been respected. But like, if you look at Chelsea last weekend, they're in the semi-final of the Champions League against Barcelona. We can say it's a fantastic attendance, 25,000, which it is, but it's not really in reality, because why are fans not coming? Like, it's a semi-final of the Champions League. Even Man United women at Lee Valley don't sell out. Manchester City, they play at the Academy Boys Stadium, they don't sell out. So it's like, why are they not selling out stadiums? And obviously, you know, I work in America, and I don't want to go down a route where, like, the US women's national team was so successful and they continue to be successful, and long may that continue. Their billboards would be in Times Square, and that is who the fans would come to watch, right?
Yeah.
The US women's national team players. Now I think we're moving away from it a little bit in America, because I think they've realised we need to market the teams as well. In England, I feel like the Lionesses have become so successful that if you look at the players in the WSL, like, they're not household names. And I'm just a little bit like, how do we make sure that there's the love shared also with the championship? Because let's be honest, this Sunday, it goes down to the final day of the season in the championship. It's on television, should have been anyway. Birmingham are playing London City Lionesses, and whoever wins that goes up to the WSL. Like, you can't get more competitive than that. So I hope they get a big crowd there. And yeah, I just think there is still a lot of work to do with regards to attendances. That's my only thing. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with where the game's at. And honestly, Natalie, I could write a book on the amount of different experiences I've had in different countries that I played in, good and bad and indifferent. You know, there's countries that I played in that are not really welcome to women in general, you know, culturally, and that still happens. And then I think, thankfully, times have changed. And hopefully, I think people like myself playing in certain countries like Italy have kind of changed people's perception of people like me in general anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's why you're an important trailblazer. And do you think of yourself as a trailblazer in that sense?
I don't really wake up and think I'm a trailblazer, but I do recognize my platform and my position I'm in. You know, a lot of the times when you're the first at doing something,
Yeah.
it's one of those ones, you put your neck out there and you might receive pelters, but then it's better, it's for the greater good. And sometimes I think I used to wait around for a pat on the back sometimes, or a thank you from people, and you realize you'll be waiting a long time. So as long as I, you know, can help people any way that I can, like, being a professional footballer was the biggest honor. But I think being able to help people by just being me, you know, and being visible, you know, I was the first ever player to come out that I was gay. You know, I was the first ever player to go to Italy and, you know, talk about my sexuality. I don't want to talk about it all the time, but it becomes a topic of conversation. And then I got to a point where I said to them, I'm not doing any more interviews about being gay. You know, like, that's not my identity. That is part of who I am, but I'm a footballer, you know? So I think I'm happy that I feel like people like myself have allowed other people to kind of be accepted. Because I think when players now come out, it's really not that big of a deal, as it shouldn't be.
Absolutely. Well, that's why I would say you're a trailblazer.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
because
Well, you
you
are as well.
no, it's not about me.
No, but
But you know, you've opened the doors to many, as you say. Even just moving to a different country to ply your trade there, it showed other people that, well, if she can do it, I can do it. So that's what I love about you, Lianne. Listen, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you
thank
for
you.
being with us today and joining us on this sporting planet.
Anytime, Natalie, anytime you need me, you know I'm always here.
Thank you.